Rain sheets across the cracked porch as Lila Merrin stands beneath the creaking awning of her late grandfather's farmhouse. The world smells of wet wood and ghosts. She hasn't been back here since she was 12, since the fight that split the family like lightning splitting an oak. Her father, Martin Merrin, waits in the car, engine idling. A man made of silence and cigarettes. Inside, the lawyer's voice drones over the ticking of an old clock. Then he slides a dusty wooden box across the table. "Your grandfather wanted you to have this." The room stills. Lila's hands tremble. Inside, rusted fishing lures, a faded photo of a lake, and a folded deed sealed with wax. Her pulse quickens. This is no junk. It's a map of everything they lost. Later that night, the farmhouse hums with ghosts. Lila and Martin sit opposite each other, dinner untouched. The old clock keeps time like a warning. Martin's voice cracks. "He always loved you more." Lila stares into her reflection on the silverware, seeing both herself and the 12-year-old who ran away. "He left it to both of us," she says, voice low. The silence stretches, thick and unbearable. A flashback tears open the past. Young Lila, barefoot by the lake, watches Grandpa hammer a sign. Merrin's Landing. His hands are strong, his laughter rolling like thunder. "One day this will be yours," he says. The promise lingers, but in the present, adult Lila unfolds the deed, and the name has been scratched out. The next morning, Lila drives to the lake. The road is swallowed by fog, memories threading through trees like whispers. She parks near the broken dock, stepping out into silence. The water mirrors the sky, gray, endless, waiting. She clutches the deed, her breath visible in the cold. This is where everything began. At the dock, she finds an old tackle box half buried in sand. The initials FM, carved on the lid inside. A photograph of Martin and Grandpa arguing by this same lake. And another, a surveyor's map with bold red ink lines. Lila's eyes widen. It's not just land, it's the hidden boundary to everything they've ever fought over. The wind howls. She knows this is only the beginning. Morning fog curls around the lake like smoke from a long-forgotten fire. Lila kneels at the water's edge, maps spread over her knees, the paper trembling in the damp breeze. The red lines lead toward the tree line, a stretch of forest once considered worthless, too rocky, too remote. But she remembers the stories. How Grandpa used to vanish there at dawn, returning with mud on his boots and a secret smile. Behind her, Martin's car crunches over gravel. He steps out, still in yesterday's clothes, eyes shadowed. "You shouldn't be here," he says. She doesn't turn. "He left it to both of us." He laughs hollow, as if the truth could be drowned by disbelief. The morning feels heavier now, full of everything they never said, everything that still binds them like barbed wire under the skin. The forest waits, silent and accusing. Somewhere in its heart lies the reason. The Merrin family broke apart. They hike into the woods, silence between them thick as moss. The trees drip with rainwater, their roots twisted like veins. Lila carries the deed rolled in her jacket. Martin walks a few paces behind, the crunch of his boots a reminder that he's still following, not leading. "You think you know him," he says finally. "You saw the man who fished with you, not the one who ruined this family." Lila stops, turning slowly. "You mean the one who gave everything to save your debts?" Her voice cuts like frost. He flinches, but says nothing. They continue through the dripping forest until they reach a stone wall, half buried in vines. On one side, Lila spots an old wooden post marked with the same crest from the wax seal. "It's real," she whispers. "It's all real." And for the first time, Martin's anger falters, replaced by something worse. Fear. By midday, they find the clearing, a meadow carved out of silence. Wildflowers push through cracked stone foundations, remnants of an old cabin long collapsed. Lila kneels beside a rusted well pump, its handle frozen in place. "He built here," she murmurs. Martin's expression tightens. His father had forbidden him to come to this place. It was supposed to be gone, he mutters. "The county seized this land, but the deed says otherwise." Lila brushes dirt from a brass plaque embedded in a stone. "Merrin Trust, 1957. For future generations." Her chest tightens. "He didn't hide this from us," she says. "You hid it from yourself." Martin's silence stretches like distance. The camera lingers on his face as he turns away, the weight of inheritance suddenly too heavy to carry. Evening settles like a confession. They make camp near the old foundation, a small fire crackling between them. The orange glow flickers across faces, it's etched with fatigue and something close to regret. Martin opens the deed, tracing the red boundary lines with shaking fingers. "He promised me this land when I was 18, he says quietly. Said I'd build here someday, but I sold my claim before I ever earned it." The admission lands like a stone in water. Lila's eyes soften. Not with forgiveness yet, but understanding. "He gave it back to us," she says. "Maybe this was his way of fixing what you broke." Martin looks up, the firelight dancing in his eyes. "Or what he broke," he replies. The night swallows their voices, leaving only the sound of crackling wood and the unspoken truth that redemption might demand more than either is ready to give. Long after Martin has fallen asleep by the fire, Lila stays awake, the deed spread open beside her. She studies the fine print by flashlight, a clause written in her grandfather's shaky handwriting. Ownership to be granted only upon discovery of truth beneath the roots. Her breath catches. She looks toward the tree line where an ancient oak rises above all others, gnarled and enormous. The roots twist out of the earth like skeletal hands. She feels drawn, compelled. As she approaches, the beam of her light catches something. A glint of metal half buried beneath roots and soil. Her pulse quickens. She kneels, brushing away damp earth. It's not a key. It's a lockbox, old, iron, sealed shut. The weight of it in her hands feels like destiny, heavy with the secrets of 3 generations. She whispers, "What did you hide from us, Grandpa?" And the wind answers in a trembling sigh. Dawn drips through the trees like liquid amber. Lila crouches beside the ancient oak, the lockbox now free from its roots, its hinges resisting her every tug. Martin stirs by the campfire, squinting into the light. "What the hell are you doing?" he asks, voice hoarse. Lila doesn't answer. Her focus is unwavering, as if she's prying open time itself. The metal groans, gives way, and the lid creaks open inside. A bundle of letters wrapped in red twine, a small leather journal, and a tarnished locket. The smell of cedar and old ink rises like memory. Martin stands behind her, frozen. Lila opens the first letter, dated 1958, and reads aloud, "To my sons, should they ever forgive each other." Her voice breaks. The letter speaks of a family feud that tore the Merrin brothers apart over land, love, and betrayal. The same wound that still festers between her and Martin. The forest feels suddenly smaller, as though the past has finally found them. They sit together as the day unfolds, the letters spread between them like confession pages. Lila reads each one aloud, her grandfather's voice reaching them through decades. The words tremble with remorse, an apology for dividing the family, a plea for unity, and instructions to restore the land in both their names once the truth was faced. Martin listens in silence, jaw tight, every word chiseling at his pride. "He knew," Martin murmurs finally. "He knew I sold him out." Lila looks up, tears streaking her face. "And he still left it to you," she whispers. The forest hums with wind through leaves. like whispers of forgiveness waiting to be heard. For the first time in years, Martin reaches for her hand. Not as father and daughter, but as two pieces of something broken finally recognizing their shape. The past doesn't dissolve, but it begins to loosen its hold. Later, as they pack the letters, Lila notices something pressed between the pages of the journal. A faded photograph of two young men standing shoulder to shoulder in front of the same oak. One of them is Martin's father, the other unfamiliar. On the back, written in looping script, "The real Merrin claim, buried deep beneath it, coordinates." Lila's heartbeat quickens. "There's more," she says. Martin leans in, his brow furrowing. "That's not here," he murmurs. "That's miles north. The quarry." The air shifts. The discovery reframes everything. The true inheritance might not be the lake or the cabin, but something buried beneath the stone hills. Martin looks away, guilt flickering. "That land was sold long ago," he says, "to the company that took everything." Lila's gaze hardens. "Then we take it back." Her resolve sharpens into something her grandfather would have recognized. A spark of defiance that runs in Merrin blood. They drive north in silence, the old truck rattling over cracked roads, tension between them thick yet fragile. The sky turns slate gray as clouds roll in, echoing the heaviness of what waits ahead. Lila traces the map's coordinates on her phone while Martin grips the wheel, lost in thoughts he can't undo. He never wanted it for himself. She says softly, "He wanted us to remember what mattered." Martin exhales, the sound caught between regret and exhaustion. "I remember too much," he mutters. When they reach the quarry, the land stretches out like a scar, fenced, abandoned, reclaimed by weeds. The air smells of rust and rain. They climb through the fence, boots sinking in mud. "He hid something here," Lila whispers, "something worth losing everything for." The thunder answers with a low growl, like the land itself is holding its breath. Rain breaks over them as they reach the quarry's center, a wide expanse of stone and silence. Lila's flashlight sweeps across the ground until it catches on something half buried beneath gravel. A steel chest, its surface scarred by time. Together they dig, mud streaking their faces, the storm pounding around them. The chest comes free with a metallic groan. Inside lies a sealed envelope, dry despite the rain. Lila tears it open. The letter inside is short, written in her grandfather's hand. "If you found this, you've reclaimed more than land. You've found the truth. That family is the only inheritance that lasts." Her tears mingle with rain. Martin steps closer, his hand on her shoulder. No longer out of guilt, but belonging. The camera pans upward as lightning illuminates them. 2 generations standing amid ruin, finally seeing the beauty in what remains. The deed flutters in the wind, like a benediction. The storm has passed. Morning light seeps into the quarry like an afterthought, pale and exhausted. Lila stands near the chest, soaked and trembling, her eyes tracing the letter's ink as if it were a sacred relic. Martin lingers a few steps behind, his face etched with decades of regret that the dawn cannot wash clean. "He never wanted the land," Lila says softly. "He wanted us to see each other." Martin's voice cracks, a sound half swallowed by wind. "I thought I did what was right," he whispers. "I thought protecting you meant leaving the past buried." Lila folds the letter, her hands steady now. "You buried yourself with it." There's no cruelty in her words, only truth. The quarry feels almost holy, a cathedral of silence and stone, where inheritance is no longer about property, but about the unbearable grace of forgiveness. The father and daughter stand side by side, the weight between them finally light enough to carry. Back at the farmhouse, the rain has left everything shimmering, windows streaked, porch glistening, the world washed raw. Inside, the box of junk sits open on the kitchen table. Lila lays the letters beside it. arranging them like artifacts. Martin watches from the doorway, uncertain, his silhouette framed by late morning light. "You look like your grandmother," he murmurs, voice softened by memory. Lila doesn't look up. "Did you ever forgive him?" she asks. He pauses long enough that the silence feels like an answer. "I tried," he says finally, "but I didn't know how." She nods. Maybe that's why he left it to me. The statement isn't proud. It's tender, almost a sigh. The clock ticks again, steady and patient, as if time itself has chosen to give them another chance. Later that afternoon, Lila drives to town with the deed folded neatly in her bag. The small county office smells of dust and paper. She meets Ellen Rowe, 63, the county clerk who's seen generations of Merrins rise and fall. Ellen squints at the deed, adjusting her glasses. This can't be right," she says. "This deed covers not just the quarry, but the riverfront, the forest, all the way to Merrin's Landing." Lila's throat tightens. "It's all ours?" Ellen smiles faintly. "It's all yours, or it was always meant to be." Lila signs the transfer documents, her hands steady despite the enormity of it. She's not reclaiming property, she's reclaiming history. As she leaves, sunlight slices across the floor, illuminating the dust in the air, like stars waiting to be noticed. That evening, Lila returns to the lake. The sun dips low, bleeding orange across the horizon. She stands at the old dock, the same boards where she once watched her grandfather cast his line, where laughter lived before everything fractured. The surface of the water mirrors her face, older, stronger, softened by loss and love. She unfolds the final letter, reading aloud into the wind. "Forgive the past. Build again. The land is yours when your heart knows peace." Her voice trembles. "I think I finally understand," she whispers. Martin joins her, slower now, but lighter than before. He places a weathered fishing rod in her hands, the same one from the photograph. "He'd want you to have it," Martin says. Together they cast the line into the glowing water, the ripples spreading outward. A prayer, a promise, a beginning. Night falls over the farmhouse, stars pricking the darkness like unspoken blessings. Inside, the box sits closed once more, no longer a mystery but a keepsake. Lila writes in her grandfather's journal, her handwriting firm, deliberate. "We found what you left us. It wasn't land, it was a way back." Martin watches from the doorway, quiet, finally at peace with silence. The lamp hums softly, illuminating dust motes that drift like slow snowfall. Lila closes the journal and looks up at him. "We should rebuild," she says. "Not the house. The name." Martin nods. Together this time. Outside, a wind passes through the fields, carrying the faint scent of rain and pine. The scent of something ending, and something beautiful beginning. Morning light spills over the Merrin fields like forgiveness incarnate. Weeks have passed since the discovery, and the farmhouse now hums with the quiet rhythm of renewal. Lila, her hair pulled back and eyes determined, paints the porch railing while Martin repairs the steps. The air smells of fresh pine and coffee. They don't speak much. They don't have to. Every nail, every brushstroke is a word they once couldn't say. Across the road, a pickup slows. Tom Grady, 47, a neighbor who'd long assumed the Merrins were finished, leans out his window. "Heard you bought back the whole ridge," he calls. Lila smiles faintly. "Didn't buy it," she says. "Just remembered it was ours." Martin laughs softly, the sound strange and new, like sunlight after rain. For the first time, the Merrin home feels alive again, not haunted, but inhabited. That afternoon, Lila visits the town library to search the archives for the Merrin Trust. The scent of paper and dust stirs nostalgia like an old song. She unearths clippings, her grandfather breaking ground at Merrin's Landing, photos of the quarry before it was stripped bare. There's one headline that makes her pause. Merrin brothers' dispute ends in silence. In the photo, her grandfather and his brother stand on opposite sides of a courtroom. Mirror. Images turned away. Lila traces their faces, realizing how far the fracture reached. She whispers to herself. We were rent, cursed. We just forgot how to forgive. As she gathers the papers, Ellen Rowe, the clerk, appears behind her. You are the first Merrin in decades to come looking, she says kindly. Lila folds the articles. Then maybe I'll be the first to remember. Back at the lake, Martin works alone on rebuilding the old dock. The boards creak under his weight, but his hands move steady, measured, redeemed by labor. He pauses to look out over the water, catching the reflection of his younger self, the man who once stormed away from this place. The ripples distort the image until only the present remains. When Lila returns, she kneels beside him, handing him a thermos of coffee. You never told me why you left, she says gently. Martin exhales, eyes fixed on the horizon. Because I didn't want to become him, he replies. But in running from that, I became worse. Lila rests her head briefly on his shoulder. Maybe now we can both be something better. The dock shudders slightly under their weight, fragile, imperfect, but strong enough to hold them. Evening. The farmhouse buzzes with quiet life. The radio humming, the smell of stew on the stove. A few locals drop by, curious and warm. Tom Grady, Ellen Rowe, even the mailman who brings a letter from the county confirming full restoration of the Merrin Trust. Lila opens it, her breath catching as she reads aloud. Ownership affirmed. Merrin family holdings reinstated in perpetuity. The words hang in the air like a benediction. Martin places his hand on hers. He did it, he murmurs. He found a way to keep us together. Lila smiles. No, she says softly. We did. The group shares quiet laughter, the kind that fills spaces where grief used to live. Outside, the wind carries the faint scent of rain again, not as threat, but renewal. Later that night, Lila steps outside onto the porch. The fields stretch out beneath a sky heavy with stars. She holds the locket from the lockbox, opening it to reveal two faded faces, her grandfather and the uncle she never met. She whispers, "We finished what you started." Inside, Martin hums an old tune, one his father used to play. The camera drifts from Lila's face upward to the night sky, where constellations shimmer like unseen letters on celestial parchment. The wind moves gently through the wheat, and the sound of the lake, steady, eternal, rises in the distance. The Merrin story, once fractured and hidden, now flows again through the land itself. The house lights glow behind her, small but certain, like a promise kept. A sharp knock breaks the calm morning. Lila opens the door to find two men in suits standing beneath the porch light. Developers from Grayson Industries, eyes cold, smiles polite. Merrin, one says. We understand the Merrin Trust has been reactivated. We'd like to make you an offer. Behind her, Martin stiffens. The man slides a folder across the table. 7 figures, enough to change everything again. But Lila's gaze hardens. You want to strip what's left, she says. We're rebuilding. The younger man smirks. You can't live on sentiment. She closes the folder without looking. No, she says quietly. But we can live on what's real. The air thickens with unspoken defiance. The developers leave, tires spitting gravel. Martin looks at her with something close to pride. The land that once divided them now unites them against the world's oldest temptation, to sell what love has only just restored. Word spreads fast through the small town. At the diner, whispers follow Lila and Martin wherever they go. Talk of offers, greed, and ghosts, refusing to stay buried. Over coffee, Ellen leans forward. They'll come harder next time, she warns. That land's worth millions now. Lila stirs her cup, watching the cream spiral. It's worth more than that, she replies softly. Martin nods, shoulders set. We're not selling, he says, voice steady. The room quiets. Outside, the diner window reflects the father and daughter side by side, not as heirs or victims, but as keepers of something no ledger could measure. The world keeps offering them escape, but they've already chosen roots. The air taste of rain and resolve. That evening, Lila walks the forest path alone, retracing the red lines from the deed. The light filters through leaves, the air thick with cicadas. She stops at the stone wall, the boundary between memory and now, and finds a small wooden cross tucked in the moss. The inscription reads, "For those who kept the promise." Her breath catches. She realizes someone else has been tending this land all along, preserving it quietly, faithfully. She kneels, fingertips brushing the damp earth. "Thank you," she whispers to whoever still listens. The wind stirs, carrying the faint scent of cedar, the same scent that lingered in the lockbox. For the first time, she understands. Inheritance isn't about ownership, but stewardship, about keeping watch so love doesn't fade. What? Martin sits alone on the porch that night, an open photo album in his lap. The pictures are faded, edges curled. His wedding day, baby Lila, the last fishing trip before the storm between them began. He hears the screen door creak and doesn't look up. "I was a fool for too long," he says. Lila steps beside him, quiet. "We both were," she replies. "But fools get second chances." He chuckles, the sound low, warm, unguarded. "You sound like him," he says. "Maybe that's the point," she answers. Lightning bugs blink over the field like scattered memories finding light again. The world doesn't heal neatly. It just keeps growing, roots finding strength in broken ground. The night hums with that fragile truth. Days later, the townspeople gather at the edge of the Merrin property. Ellen, Tom, and others stand before a new sign, freshly carved by Martin and painted by Lila. Merrin's Landing, for everyone. Children run to the lakeshore, laughter echoing across the water. The dock stands rebuilt, steady, and the reflection of the sky seems almost new. Lila watches them, eyes glistening. Not from loss, but from completion. "Had like this," Martin says softly beside her, "he'd finally be proud." Lila shakes her head, smiling. He already was. The camera widens, taking in the lake, the house, the people, the horizon, all bathed in gold. What was once a wound has become a gathering place, and what was buried has become alive again. The deed rests framed inside the farmhouse, not as property, but as proof that love, once reclaimed, can never truly be lost. Morning mist rolls over Merrin's Landing, soft and endless. It's been a year since the land was reclaimed. The dock is worn again, but in a good way. Used, lived in, alive. Lila stands at the edge with a thermos of coffee, watching the fog lift over the lake. She's 30 now, her face older in the way peace makes you older, quietly, gently. Behind her, laughter echoes from the farmhouse. Children running, neighbors gathering for the summer fair. Martin steps beside her, his hair whiter, his posture easier. "You kept it alive," he says, pride warm in his voice. Lila shakes her head. "We did." The two of them watch as the mist dissolves into sunlight, the reflection of the house and dock shimmering on the water. What was once burden has become inheritance, not of wealth, but of belonging. The world feels complete, but not finished, still breathing, still becoming. Inside the farmhouse, the kitchen hums with life. Lila kneads bread while Ellen arranges flowers on the table. The smell of rosemary and yeast fills the air. On the counter rests the old wooden box, cleaned, varnished, its once broken latch repaired. Children peek inside, finding the locket, the letters, the fishing lyre, the photo of the lake. Was this really junk? One asks. Lila smiles. It was, she says, until we looked closer. Outside, the laughter of new generations seeps through the windows, blending with the ticking of the old clock that has counted every moment of loss and healing. The farmhouse, once a monument to silence, now pulses with sound. Footsteps, voices, and the simple, miraculous music of family. That afternoon, Lila walks to the field beyond the farmhouse, where the wheat sways in gold, and the sky seems endless. She carries her grandfather's journal, its pages now full of her handwriting. She stops by the old oak, the one that once guarded the lockbox, and places the journal at its roots. "We kept your promise," she says softly, "and we'll keep watching." The wind moves gently, bending the wheat as if bowing in response. She closes her eyes, listening, and for a heartbeat, she hears him again. Her grandfather's laugh, the splash of a fishing line, the sound of belonging that time could not erase. It isn't magic, it's memory, alive in the soil. She smiles, knowing that every generation that walks this land will find something buried. Not secrets, but reminders of who they are. As evening falls, the town gathers by the lake for the Merrin festival, a celebration of what was reclaimed. Lanterns float on the water, carrying handwritten wishes. Martin stands on the dock, a quiet figure against the sunset. Lila joins him, holding the last lantern. "For him?" Martin asks. She nods. Together they light the candle and release it, watching it drift into the growing constellation of light. Around them, laughter, music, and the low murmur of community swell like tide. "He'd never believe this," Martin says. "He would," Lila answers. "He planned it all along." The camera drifts upward as the lanterns spread across the lake, a universe born of forgiveness flickering against the dusk. Night settles. The farmhouse lights dim one by one. In the living room, the deed rests framed on the wall above the mantel, beside a new photo of Lila, Martin, and the townspeople at Merrin's Landing. The box of junk now holds only one thing, a note in Lila's handwriting. "For whoever finds this next, look closer." Outside, the fields ripple under the moonlight, and the lake mirrors the stars. The story that began with loss ends in continuation. Not a closing, but an inheritance of light. The wind moves through the house, gentle and certain, carrying the laughter of generations yet to come. The final image lingers, the box on the table, the moon reflected in its varnished lid, and the sound of distant water, eternal, forgiving, alive.